wallpaper going.
Nice.
Dude, I think we're live. What's up, everybody? Hope everyone's been having an awesome day, and thank you for tuning into this Derp Birds Outpost AMA. We actually have none other than Dave from Derp Birds here, which Dave and I had an awesome conversation at NFTLV, and we were like, definitely wanting to hop on the channel for the first time, just learn a little bit more about everything that you guys are doing. And if none of you guys from Block is Hot channel that are tuning in have heard of Derp Birds, I really recommend checking them out and learning more about them. It's one of the projects out there that I really like. Dave, I really like what they're doing. I like their art, their IP. They really have solid plans with where they're going, and it's a project to check out. But yeah, enough of an introduction here. Dave, how about an introduction with you? Who are you, Dave? And what is like a very brief breakdown of Derp Birds for people that have never heard about it before?
Yeah, so my name's Dave. I go by Derp Dave or the other Dave or King Dave, depending upon where we're connecting. But yeah, I'm one of the co-founders of Derp Birds. One of we originally had three co-founders. We lost one of them along the way, so it's just me and the other. But I'm one of the co-founders. I'm sort of the product, sort of vision, community, marketing. Also do a lot of the UX and so on. So we have to wear a lot of hats. I'm sure it's the same for you, but. Quick rundown on Derp Birds. Yeah, we've been around for over 2 years now, which is wild to say. We launched back in September of 2021. And at a very high level, without getting into too many details, we're sort of I think the best way to describe Derp Birds, which I think is the same thing I told you back in that quick little interview at NFTLV, was we sort of I've tried to position ourselves to sort of be this universe in which people can sort of, in a fun and safe way, sort of explore the bounds of Web3. So our marketing slogan is so much stuff. We've done a lot of stuff over the years. We focused on the minting tech for a long time, but have really since then sort of fallen into this groove of sort of gamified NFT collecting, where all of our NFT collections are sort of plugged into this ecosystem that's ever expanding. It's about to expand even more here in a couple of days. Yeah, so it's a lot about fun and creating, again, a safe sort of fun environment to explore the world of Web3.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say is because I bought like a Dirt Bird recently, like a couple weeks ago, because I was like, man, you guys are really doing a lot of stuff. You guys have one of the most active communities right now on Cardano from a lot of these different Discords I enter. Do you mind like just talking about your community a little bit and just what kind of is at like the center of your community and what your community is kind of like?
Yeah. Oh my God. Like like it's kind of funny because any conversation about Derp Birds, and again, same thing happened at NFTLV. I talk to anyone else, any random person walks up, any founder, immediately what people talk about is community. So yeah, I had like a 2-hour conversation with someone there about how we got to where we're at with community. And I think the best way to describe like the vibe of the community and sort of the current state is, I think it was Tommy from Freedom 35. He said the other day, he's like, dude, how do you handle it? I'm just like, I just accept what I can't control. The Derp community are their own entity at this point. We try, they just kind of do their thing. But yeah, from the early days, like we had a really large focus on community. In trying to allow people to basically have any conversation they want, as long as they're not sort of stepping over the bounds, and that creates a difficult dynamic because you don't want to moderate too much. We want to create a space where people can come in and chat about anything. Back in 2021, there were a lot of project discords where like you literally couldn't even talk about other NFT projects, and that seems like that seems super ridiculous to us back then. So we've always been a place where you could really come and talk about anything. There are some limits or some bounds. It's very difficult for us to moderate those. But yeah, pretty much I would say that beyond the love that we have for the IP that we've developed in Derp Birds, it is the community is like the backer for why we're still here. They're involved in so many ways. So many of them contribute to the project beyond just being an active part of the community. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things is, as you said, you jump into the Derp Birds Discord at almost any time, still popping, super active. I know it's very similar for you guys as well. Very active community. I've been sort of lurking over there a lot lately, and yeah, it's always a ton of fun just hanging out with the community.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of funny when you brought up that whole idea of like not trying to moderate too much because that's something that we really try to do as well and just let people have those conversations. And there's sometimes like things pop off a little too much and you're like, "Oh man, like, you know, chill."
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, that's cool, and I think it's one of the most important things right now, and kind of the lifeline of a lot of projects is just people that believe in the vision, believe in what you guys are trying to do, are the voice of your project, of that movement, of that idea,
Yeah.
and really. Looking back before I started being a founder, I didn't realize just how important that metric was to the success of a project. And now it's one of the most important, if not the most important thing for a project.
It truly is.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I love so much about Web3 is like the promise that so many of us were sold on for Web3 is that we all partake, right? We all participate. We are all part owners in these things that are being built. And so it sort of it's almost a double-edged sword. If you're a part of the community, is you're along for the ride, right? You get to participate, but you, rather than like Web2, like if you're playing Fortnite, you're just logging in and just playing the game and that's it, right? You're just a sort of, again, you're fully along for the ride. In Web3, there really is this notion, and again, there's a fine line. It's hard to define it. It's even hard to talk about it. But where your contributions to the projects and the overall success of the project are almost a requirement, right? If you really believe in the thing that the project that you're involved in, then being active, telling others about it, and so on is kind of a part of the Web3 experience. And again, it's interesting. It's difficult to talk about, but it's yeah, it is a lot of fun.
100%. And I think we should, and I was trying to pull up some stuff. I don't know if you have some stuff you can share as share your screen with as we walk through some of this. But a lot of people are tuning in right now because you guys have a big mint coming up. Probably the biggest mint that's happened on Cardano and a long time now, and that's your Outpost mint. Now, we did post a tweet on my personal Twitter today where it was just like a quick little rundown of what it is. But what's like the general overview of what you guys are doing with Outpost? And then we can kind of break down some of these different aspects in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I wish we were 24 hours in the future. Tomorrow we are going to drop a mega thread that is literally the everything. It
The
is what
everything.
we're doing from the mining and everything. Right now, the resources are spread about, but I would say that I'll shoot you a link here in the private chat. We do have a resource that is out, which is the guidebook, and it's sort of pretty much everything that you should know or need to know at this point is there in the guidebook. So we can share that out.
I was gonna say I can share my screen. I don't know. Do you want me to kind of share it, or do you want to?
I don't mind sharing. I have so much stuff, like so many spoilers, like so many things that should not be seen on my screen right now. But I think it'll be safe as long as I close
Yeah, if
out.
you hit the present button, you should be able to share just that one screen here. It might help out.
Okay, cool. I can even do like a specific Chrome tab. Cool. So I'm gonna share, and I'm not gonna read through all of this. Instead, I'll reference a few things here and there as we go through this. But before I even start scrolling, in fact, I'm gonna click back over because I feel like if I'm looking at the guidebook, I'm not gonna be able to
Okay. Well,
focus.
there we go.
Yeah, on more
We'll take
intense
it out
things.
for now.
But yeah, so you asked what are outposts? Outposts are really a expansion. It's sort of our first sort of foray into the world of Derpatonia, right? And so Derpatonia is the place where all of these the character collections exist. We have the Derp Birds, we have the Derplings, we have the Preds, which aren't from Derpatonia but have since invaded, and we have the Derp Apes. And the outposts represent these locations around Derpatonia where this resource that exists within in this place called Derpatonia, called Chelanium, exists. And again, there's so many twists and turns in the story that I don't want to get into. But that's really what the outposts are. They are areas around Derpatonia where these mining operations take place. And the why we've got like Ape Society, for example, did cabins and different projects that have done different takes on things. The reason why we went with mining outposts, and this is probably the most known thing about this collection, is that the outposts themselves are tied to ASIC crypto miners, right? So this is a new collection. 80% of the funding that's raised for the Outpost collection go through through our partnership with Goofy Gophers, go towards acquiring miners. And so this idea, again, that Derp Birds IP is important to us. Everything has to sort of fit into this story in this world that we're building. So for us, it was important that if we're going to do something like this that's tied to crypto mining in some way, what better what better way to sort of represent mining than to have sort of mining facilities, mining outposts. And this, again, it did a lot of things for us in terms of story. It allows us to sort of start painting the picture of what the world of Derpatonia looks like. What are the places you could go to? What are, what's the flora and the fauna? Like, what are the types of things that you would discover on the planet? And so, yeah, at a very high level, that's what it is. It's a new collection. We're going to raise funding. 80% of what's raised is going towards miners. And then the revenue from the mining operation itself, that Gophers is managing for us, goes back to the holders of Outposts. So that's the jumping in point. There's loads of other layers in terms of gamification, other earning sources, and so on. But that is the jumping in point.
Yeah, and before I guess we go some of like these different aspects deeper, because like you said, I mean, there's the gamification aspect of it. We can get into the upgrading, we can get into the fortifying, all of these different aspects, the derp token. Like, there's a lot of things to break down in that. But before we start to break down these different metrics of it, why the mining? Like, what kind of drew you to that? I know you were saying you were building out the whole Derptopia and you brought up the ape cabins and stuff. In all honesty, you guys could have minted a project, raised a bunch of money, and not allocated it towards mining if you wanted to, right? So what was like the kind of the drawing point to you guys for that mining aspect?
That's a great question. And there was a really great conversation that went down on Twitter yesterday. I had a back and forth with Kongzi, if you know him on Twitter, where he was sort of asking the same question. I think the way that he was phrasing it is, hey, like Derp Birds is a known project with trusted team. And he didn't phrase it the exact way as you, but I think he was also asking the question is, if you guys could go and do something, if you could go and raise a bunch of funding in some way, why go the route of mining? And honestly, it's not to say that there weren't other options. There were. We as you said, we could have gone in a lot of different directions with this, but there's a number of reasons, and I think it's hard to unpack all of them without this being a 30-minute response. But a large part is we've been able to get by over the last, we're over 2 years old now. It's been 20 months since we've raised funding of any kind. And we've shown that you can get a lot done with very little. And there is this sort of weird misconception. It's not weird. It's very easy to understand. But there is this misconception in the space that projects need a lot of money to do anything. And it's not true. There is zero correlation between amount of funding raised and number of like meaningful deliverables, sort of checked off by the team, right? How many projects have we seen come in, raise millions or, tens of millions on other chains in particular, and literally report back, 12 months later or whatever, we're broke. And they've made no meaningful deliverables. So for us, so keep that in mind. Let's set that to the side for a second. Something that's and there is a topic that's being discussed right now. And I think it's a very fair concern to have. People are like, well, Derp Birds have a lot of NFTs. There is literally no one who is going to be more vocal and who is going to remind everyone that we have too many NFTs than me. You and I talked about this in Vegas. I told you, I was like, we have the Derp Apes, we have the Preds, we have the Derp Birds with the Derpings, we have the Legacy Collection, the Rebirth Collection. We just recently updated the original Preds to B2. So for us, the idea that because we already do have all those collections, though many of them were cheap or free, we need to balance how we're asking for funding and how we are giving back to our community. Let's say we wanted to go raise $1 million, for example. At this point, because we have raised funding in the past, I don't feel, whatever the circumstances are, I don't feel it would be right for us to just ask the community to write us a blank check with the intent of not giving back in some way. So to get back to the answer, to answer your question, why mining? Mining, especially at this point right now, with how affordable miners are to purchase, and something we'll talk about tomorrow in our Twitter space with Gophers themselves, because they are the experts on this. This is a really good opportunity for us to put fun into something that allows us to secure our future in a way that we don't feel that there's really not a lot of other options for us to do the same thing. We could throw it in, we could leave it all in ADA and hope that ADA goes back up. And we think it will at some point in the future. But in this way, we know we have a lot of security in the future funding of the project. So again, a number I shared yesterday is after with numbers that we're looking at right now, the monthly revenue from mining after we've sent out rewards to Outpost holders, that alone covers our monthly overhead by a couple multiples, right? Like the mining revenue alone is much more than our overhead is right now. So for us, this is, yes, we could raise funding and put all of it into the project treasury. And yes, that might allow us to build, maybe scale up the team even more and do something much faster. But we would rather take, as has always been our play, we would much rather take the conservative approach, because we want to be here for the long haul. And to be totally honest, and I mentioned this yesterday in that tweet I mentioned, I would be very skeptical of founders who were saying, give us all this funding. This is the thing that we're going to build and that we're going to deliver. And sort of like they're painting a picture of this incredible thing that's going to happen when they do that. Because again, in this market, and especially on Cardano, I just don't see many things personally that someone's going to deliver that's going to change the game, right? That just going to completely reinvent everything that you thought you knew about NFTs, and that's completely going to shift the ecosystem. So for us, mining it solves a lot of issues, but I'd say first and foremost, it's just it aligns with our goals and sort of our methods of operation, which are give us a little bit and watch what we can do with it. We don't need millions of dollars in our treasury to be able to deliver. We need a very conservative amount, and that secures our future for the indefinite future. Like as far out as we can project, we're set with that. So that's why mining. Some other things as well, but that's a big part of it.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense in the aspect of you guys are prioritizing cash flow in the sense of, hey, we'll take this money, we'll invest it in something that we know is going to give us a positive return on our investment and a positive cash flow. That cash flow can then make sure that we're handling all of our expenses, with also a lot of those rewards being able to go back to holders in a way that's a lot more consistent and safe and plausible than, let's say, hey, we're going to take this money and we're going to build out this platform that may or may not have a return on our investment because the market's really shit,
So you literally just paraphrase. I mean, you should have just answered it before I tried. Literally, that was more concise and more well said than me. Like, that's it. It is a safe, like, one thing I want to add on to something you said there is that, like, we are raising funding. We are trying to ensure that this mint from all onlookers is as safe as possible, meaning the funding that we're asking for, 80% of that is going back into resources that are flowing back to the holders. So if we didn't already have, I think, the positive sort of trusted reputation that we do have in the space, I would hope that even if people don't like us, at a minimum, they're like, yeah, at least you can trust the Derp team. So that's been a big part of this, is we're saying, look, we're taking, and again, what Kongzi, what the person who tweeted at us yesterday about it, what he was saying is like, why are you guys putting 80% back into the miners? I'd rather more of that go into your pockets. And what we're saying is, well, the trust is much appreciated, right? Like it definitely is. But what is that saying? Like, it takes one woman 9 months to give birth to a child, but 9 women can't give birth to a child in 1 month. I've just completely butchered that. but like,
I haven't heard of that one before.
You can't just like throw a bunch of, like, just throwing a bunch of money. And you see this everywhere, right? Look at Elon going into Twitter or X, right? They had way more staff before he cleaned house, and they're delivering much more rapidly than ever. So there is this idea of more resources equals faster delivery and so on isn't always the case. So yeah, but dude, well said. It's way more concise than
it makes a lot of sense because we're thinking about that in the same lines, because if you think about it without getting too into detail, you have NFT projects coming out. Before they come out, they say, hey, we're going to build this, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And essentially, some of these projects, the founders are taking a lot of money, but let's say they actually allocate to building out XYZ platform. That platform, you are now expecting as a holder to generate some sort of return in value. That return could either be additional utility to the holders, that return could be, cash flow, that could be a bigger brand for the project, more influence, more exposure, whatever the case is. But you are looking for some sort of return on that investment. And what happens more often than not in this space when things are rapidly evolving so quickly is you'll see different projects try to deliver stuff. A lot of times it takes a very long time, and a lot of times it is not actually returning an investment on anything. And that's where you see most of projects, they run into this issue where they might have budgeted their finances wrong, or they might have been holding all crypto and now all of a sudden crypto had gone down a lot, or whatever they build didn't get any traction. Whereas with mining, and we can break down the numbers because that's like a big thing that like has been happening in our Discord. Okay, how much mining rewards is this? How much is this going to get distributed? But when you think of like just an NFT project in general, and why I really like GGMC when they first came out, is now you have something that is very simple in the business perspective. You buy this miner for $3,500. It's going to generate X amount of money in crypto per month. These are the different amounts of money it's going to generate depending on the difficulty, depending on how many people are mining, depending on the price of crypto. And then based on these profits, this is what we can now do with this. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense in general. And I think so many projects like Disco Solaris and some of these other ones that are running out of funding, they're running out of runway. It's because they had invested in something such as like with Disco Solaris, their customization that really didn't draw in enough revenue for it to basically be sustainable. Whereas this, there's a lot less guesswork. So yeah, that's like the whole tangent.
Again, I agree 100% with everything you said there. There is like when you hear a founder pitch this huge unknown, right? It's not a bad thing, right? That we need innovation, we need new ideas, we need new things coming into the space, like what you guys are working on right now. That's entirely new. We need that, but there is at a minimum a lot of speculation that has to go on around what is the outcome. What is the outcome? We can all sort of theorize and have our thesis for like, what the outcome might be. And that's fun. It's a ton of fun to do that, right? Like, I think you and I are both sort of like product people, and it's a lot of fun to think about that. But with mining in particular, you can do the same. However, you could really boil it down to a few scenarios. You identified some of those, right? Costs of miners and how difficult is it to mine and so on. Those are knowable, right? Those are variables that you can sort of account for, plug into a spreadsheet, and you can see what those outcomes are going to be yourself. For me, and the last thing I want to add on to that is beyond everything else that we've just talked about, like what is the return on investment and everything. The way that I really like to think about it, or how I prefer to think about it for Derp Birds, is beyond all of that, right? This is so much more than the mining and the return and everything. If it was only mining, and I've said this so many times on Twitter, we would have never done it. We would not have just said, let's just drop a collection, let's just sell some JPEGs and go buy miners. And the reason why is because when it just doesn't fit into that doesn't satisfy any of the conditions for us doing anything on Derp Birds, right? We have a set of conditions. These need to be satisfied for us to do it, right? It has to be fun. It has to be gamified. Needs to fit the story. Needs to be aligned with what's important, what we think is important to our community, what they enjoy. But fun is at the very top of that, right? It has to be fun. And then the other reason is we wouldn't have done it because GGMC is doing it, and they're doing an awesome job at it. And one of the things that we've said so many times is we're trying to be really cautious to not position ourselves as competition to GGMC. It's why we partnered with them. We approached them before the Kingdom Trust idea, like this, it was right before they announced it. We approached them, and Ryan was like, bro, wait till next week. He's like, we have this thing that's perfect for what you want to do. Well, I don't know if Ryan uses the word bro ever, but But he's like, wait, we have this thing coming out next week. That's perfect for you guys. Had they turned us down, right? Had they not launched Kingdom Trust, or had Ryan be like, yeah, I don't know that we would have gone with it, to be honest, because we do not want to like pick a fight or like just do more of something else that already exists in the space. And that's why Outpost, again, the mining thing, awesome. We've already talked about all the benefits, but it's one of the many layers that had it been the only thing that we were doing, we just wouldn't have approached it. So yeah.
Well, dude, I think now is a good time to kind of break some of this down. And I can put some of this I had to click through for a second. I guess like cover whatever you think is important to cover, and if people in the audience have questions through this, we can make sure to answer them as well. But yeah, there's a lot to this. There's a lot to break down here with the fortifying, the upgrading, the customization. I definitely want to talk about the Derp token as well, because I think that is a really big separator when it comes to sort of the reward structure with these outposts in general. But yeah, feel free to just like take it away, man, and
Cool.
kind of break some of this down.
Yeah, well, jump in, interrupt me, ask questions as I'm going, and I'll try not to talk too much about any particular facet of this. But starting from the top, Outpost, again, we talked about, there are these locations all over Derpatonia, and you can, again, we haven't even revealed like fully sort of finalized artwork. So I don't want to, I don't have anything to jump to be like, yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
But what you'll notice, what you see, like even from the things that we're showing here is, sort of the different locations and such. But so we've already talked about this, right? The locations are the outposts are in all these different locations all across Derpatonia. But the three characteristics, the three primary traits of the outposts are the location, as we're seeing here, and we'll come back to it. Its size, as we see here, and then it's the faction, right? Does it align to Derp Birds, the Preds, the Derplings, or the Derp Apes? And so to sort of tackle those one at a time is the location. Actually, let's start with size. I think it makes a little more sense to go in that order. So there are multiple earning or sort of reward sources. We talked about mining. We've talked a lot about mining so far. Every outpost basically it gets rewarded from the mining operation. All of them, small, medium, and large, doesn't matter. They all benefit from that. Cool. But we've taken it beyond that. For medium, and I don't even know why I'm talking. You can just look at this and it basically spells everything out. But you'll see from medium, at medium outposts, not only do you of course earn from mining, but you also get rewarded based on ecosystem. So our ecosystem, if people are unaware, is pretty robust and is continuing to grow. We just launched our marketplace a couple of weeks ago. We have Adventures in Derpatonia coming hopefully at the end of this year. Lots of other things that are already on the docket for 2024 that we're looking at. So medium, starting at medium, 30% of everything that's collected through our ecosystem also goes back to outposts. That will only, we hope, we suspect, we plan to grow over time, right? As the ecosystem grows, we'll have more and more revenue coming in from that. And then for large outposts, we start tapping into royalties, and that's not just for royalties for the outposts. That's royalties across all of our collections. So that's Derp Birds, Preds, Derplings, Legacy Derps, Rebirth Derps, so on and so forth. So again, I want to tie this back to what we talked about a few minutes ago. I said we want to make this as safe as possible, right? And I think it's safe because we're a trusted team. And though the ADA mint cost is a premium, it's up there. It's not. It is also aligned with like the Goofy Gophers mint in terms of USD value of ADA and everything. So on that regard, right, in terms of like, can you trust the team? Is this overpriced and so on? I think those questions you answer for yourself. You make a judgment call. If you don't trust me, fine, whatever. But the other way that when I get back to saying like this is a safe mint is. Not only are we giving back 50% of not only is 80% of the mint funds going to miners and 50% of the mining revenue is going back to the outpost, but we're also saying, 30% of all this ecosystem that we continue to build is also going to go back to you, to those who decide to show up for this mint. And then for those, in addition to that, 30% of all royalties for everything that we've launched over the last couple of years, we're going to start pushing that back to outposts as well. And that's not everything. There are more plans again that I don't want to get into yet, and still have to be sort of revealed and work through. But that's at launch, right? This is launch. So this isn't at some point in the future. This isn't give us all this funding and then we're going to work on building this. This is day one. Mining takes a little bit of time to get up and running, but this is literally day one. Infrastructure is set up for this. So that size, I'll pause.
Yeah, no, so to tap on the time thing, just like very briefly, like if it's a quick answer, like what's sort of the time frame on some of this stuff? Like how long do you think it'll take to get the miner set up and that sort of thing?
I want to say, dude, and this is the benefit to working with Ryan and GGMC. It's a them thing. They run the mining operation. However, I have asked this question as well. I want to say it's like 30 days from the moment that we basically purchase the miners. It's like 30 days for everything to be set up and running. I think
Okay, awesome.
there's some give and take there. There's a little bit of like fluctuation, just different factors. But I think Ryan has told us to expect around 30 days.
That's really quick, yeah.
I'm so again. I don't want to steal Ryan's thunder for our space tomorrow, but they just recently went out to Dubai and whatnot, and they toured a few farms out there. And dude, hearing him as loud and as excited as I am to talk about Derp Birds, well, again, I don't know if he gets as loud as me, but like he's definitely as passionate about this as I am about Derpatonia, right? Like he loves it, and watching him light up when he talks about how insane these mining farms are out there, how efficient they are from like electricity point of view, and so on, state of the art. And he said state of the art, even like compared to anything that he's seen here in the U.S. Yeah, so that great questions for him tomorrow if anyone wants to attend the space. I want to say so I wanted to mention something and sort of tied to the time. The time in question is we get the miners. It takes around 30 days to get them up and running. I believe that's what Ryan has said. And one thing I want to just mention, it's not super related. It's a smaller detail. Is very similar to GGMC and at Ryan's sort of suggestion is for the first 90 days once the miners are up and running. 90% of what's mined just goes straight back into acquiring more miners. The other 10% just goes into project treasury. It's just paying team and expenses and so on. But 90% of that leads to compounding miners. The really cool thing about this, and again, I think that speaks for itself. Everyone can understand that. It just means that during that 90 days, we're just going to just be getting more and more miners. But the really cool thing about this, when you couple this with the cost of miners right now and the current the current cost of miners right now, is that the amount of hash rate that we end up with, and hash rate is just basically the number of miners we have. By the end of that 90-day period, in conjunction with this other cool factor that Ryan has mentioned, is that we might be, I don't want to give the number, but there is a discount that we should be able to secure with the number of miners we'll be purchasing, which just leads to more miners and hash rate. So by the end of this 90-day period, I think we end up with a pretty robust amount of hash rate. Again, I don't want anyone to think like, oh my God, an outpost is going to like give me monthly revenue to pay my renters. It's not like that. Like people should have realistic expectations. We will release very soon, like a spreadsheet that people can use to get the numbers for themselves. But I want to mention that in conjunction with the question of timing is just there's the 30-day setup period, and then there's 90 days where we're just going to be like literally cranking on getting as many miners plugged up as possible. And then after the 90 days is when we transition into sort of the de facto plan.
Nice. And real quick, we did get a question from Okasha. They were just asking what's kind of the breakdown in outpost sizes as far as like how many smalls, how many mediums, how many larges. Do you have a number for each?
Let me okay, so I will every time I go on a show, I try to like drop some alpha that we haven't mentioned anywhere else. So we do have those numbers. I'm looking for the tab. You can't see that, right? I just clicked into a new tab.
No, I cannot see.
Okay, cool. A lot of numbers in here that we do not want seen yet.
Dave has an OnlyFans? What?
Yeah, so the question was around sizes, right? Number of small, medium, large.
Yes. How many of each size?
This is an approximate, right? Because we're balancing for factions, for size, and for location, and then some other factors. So I'll go ahead and throw the breakdown out there. There's 15 one of ones, right? And those are all large, by the way. But I think it's important to sort of put that out there. There's 15 one of ones. There are around 3,600 small, around 2,800 medium, and around 1,600 large. Again, approximation, final numbers, like that's one of our last sort of like checks before the mint begins. But those are sort of rough numbers. That's a rough approximation for what the sizes look like. So again, we haven't revealed that yet. It might come out in tomorrow's tweet, but yeah.
Sweet. Those larges are people are definitely going to go crazy for those, because one thing is those royalties really do add up, because you guys get a lot of volume, like even in a bear market compared to other projects out there. Like I'm trying to see you guys, I'm pretty sure the Derp Birds collection, as far as volume, is let me see.
I think to play devil's advocate, yes, the royalties definitely do add up. But I think and again, this goes back to what I talked about a few minutes ago. And we talk about the number of collections we have and such. Like there's definitely, you need to look at all of them. There's the legacy derps, the derps, the present. So yeah, I agree completely with you that large, and of course they're designed to be that way. Large are, will definitely be coveted. But the cool thing, and to sort of transition that into location and to talk about location, is that even if you get a small, that the location isn't bound to the size in any way. Well, it is. You could get a large lava loads peak, for example, but you could also get a small lava load peak. And so that just means that, like, if you just end up with a small, there's still so many other awesome things going on for that based on the rarity, based on the faction, based on the assets you have, and we'll talk about fortifying and such. And even some other fun features that are in at launch, and then some of which are planned to come in after. There aren't any of the outposts that, again, that we feel like it might feel like it's just a letdown that you don't need a large lava load peak to feel as if you're getting rewarded for this collection.
I like how there's that different rarities and sizes too. It makes the minting experience a little bit more fun than everyone getting the same thing, It gives
dude, there's literally, you pick up on everything. Like one of the things that again, so for me, NFTs, like, biggest motivator for me is fun. Like if I'm not having fun, I'm probably not gonna stay engaged with projects. As a degen and collector myself, like I want to have fun. And so the struggle for us has been balancing exactly that. And so I'm only going to use this sort of comparison one time, because I don't want people to think of it as land cells. It's not. They're locations and they're mining facilities, but they do take place in locations around Derpatonian. So I think it's perfectly normal to draw that parallel between a project that maybe does a land cell, for example, and what we're doing. There are similarities. I think better, like a better comparison is to like Ape Society's cabins, for example. I think that makes a little more sense. However, especially in this market, like, to me, the fun of minting is when a character collection, right? If you're minting like a PFP character collection, dude, I always have fun with that, especially if the mint experience is like dynamic and cool and fun. But there's something about minting a PFP character collection that dynamic of like, they change so much visually that it's usually just fun. And with this, you're right, it's a little more challenging to create that, like, if you get a Sanskrit Badlands, for example, based on the size, it looks completely different. Based on the faction, it looks completely different. So even the structure, again, I'm all over the place right now, but even the structures on the outposts, and I'll show a quick example. Even the structures of the outposts themselves. So every structure has all the outposts has 7 structures on them. They have a mining facility. And again, what we're seeing here is a preview of like the Derp Birds one. Here we're seeing the Pred mining facility. This is the Derp Birds comms tower. But as you scroll down, you see like the Derp Apes energy compound. But and here we see the security office. But the point I was going to make is that even the location itself has an effect on the structures. Some of it's more extreme than others. So, for example, if we jump back over here real quick, if you have Chillartica drifts, which is like a snowy place, then all the structures have snow on them. And so, while it's not massively distinct, what we have really put energy into is how can we make, even though this isn't a PFP sort of character collection, we still wanted all of them to feel unique and dynamic when you're looking at them. And so, yeah, again, there's way more layers that we can talk about in terms of upgrading and fortifying that also affects the visuals. But yeah, for Mint Day, spot on. Like, it's a challenge that we had to contend with. Is how do you still make it fun to sort of like have the NFT that you just minted rebuild?
Yo, real quick, Dave, your mic changed. I think it might have picked up a different source.
Uh-oh. Can you hear
Something
me now?
happened.
Can you hear me now?
I mean, so click on your settings button and then click audio and see if it changed your mic to a different device.
Yeah, it switched to my AirPods.
Okay, now we're good. You sounded underwater for a second there.
Hopefully I talk loud enough that even though my AirPods like 3 feet away, yeah, you were still able to hear me.
No, we heard you.
Cool.
Yeah, it was just not as nice sounding. We're good now, guys. We made it. No, yeah, and I think that's super important too, just like having that fun aspect in it. And I also think from like the creator standpoint, it makes it a lot more fun too, you know, coming up with these different ideas. Okay, we have these different pieces of land. These are going to have these different outposts depending on, you know, which, if you have a pred or a derpling, and that's going to change the style of that. And then the size is going to have an impact. And then there's these different structure types. Now, going into these structure types and stuff, I know that you were on a different tab here. Did you sort of want to go over like this fortifying and this upgrading? Like,
yeah,
what's going on with this?
So fortifying, a little less visual here in terms of pretty infographics to look at, but fortifying is, again, so I mentioned earlier, like there's no way we're going to approach this if all it is a mining collection. And so fortifying is this idea that, again, we have this conflict in Derpatonia, right? There's the derps, which are the derp birds, the derplings, and the derp apes. And then there are the preds, which are invading. And so while we're calling them factions across the board, really it's the derp birds and the derplings and the derp apes are sort of banding together against the preds. But we wanted to, for a number of reasons, fun being first and foremost always for us, is like we wanted to, of course, utilize the character collections in some way with the outposts. We wanted there to be this dynamic between the outposts themselves and the character collection. So what fortifying is each outpost can be fortified with matching character collection. So if you have a derp ape outpost, you can fortify it with up to 4 derp apes. What fortifying does, and this sort of gets us into the discussion of the derp token as well, fortifying allows your derp apes that are fortifying the outpost to earn derp every epoch. They earn it in the form of XP. XP is sort of our off-chain point system, and then you can convert it to derp. But they earn that every epoch. And again, I won't get into all the numbers about how much each earns and everything that we get. We have to go down a deep rabbit hole there of sort of like the more advanced gamification systems of the ecosystem. But yeah, every character can fortify an outpost. Once the outpost is fully fortified, right? Every outpost can have 4 fortifiers. Once it's fully fortified, the outpost itself begins earning derp as well every single epoch. So as long as for the entire epoch, your characters have been in the outpost, they will earn at the end of that epoch. And if the outpost has been fully fortified for the complete epoch, then it earns at the end of the epoch as well. Though really, I mean, this is probably, to be honest, like going back to the locations and everything you said from like a creator's point of view, dude, I fucking love Derpatonia. Like I getting to like literally like create these locations, like for us, like for me, it's just like that's probably my favorite thing is we're building out the world of Derpatonia through this collection. And it's not just those 7 locations, also the one of ones all take place in a unique location that we're showing around Derpatonia, doing some insane things with that. But beyond that sort of high level, like we're getting to like build a world of Derpatonia, fortifying is my favorite feature because again, it allows us to use our existing characters. The there's one reason I can't say, like, it literally is supposed to be revealing it today that I can't talk about, but there's another mechanic involved there that also makes this my favorite feature. But then on top of that, and something we haven't really talked about, is we do hope that with the Outpost collection, this is an opportunity for people who, which I disagree with this way of thinking about NFTs, like I've missed the boat or whatever. I don't really agree with, personally. I think if you like the project, like, dude, and you want to have fun, then you haven't missed a boat. Like, just come join. It's fun. Like, that's what we're doing. You're going to have fun. So yeah, stop thinking of it as investments all the time and ROI and profits. And I know that's important to some people, but like, a big goal with Outposts is to say, look, we understand you feel like you missed the boat. Outpost, there's no whitelist, there's no reservations. Anyone can mint, free for all. Like, you're not disadvantaged in any way if you don't own existing Derp character assets. You can come in and hold your Outposts and earn your mining, your ecosystem, your royalties, rewards. You don't have to do anything. But as soon as we added fortification, we're like, okay, well, it does start to feel as if I'm disadvantaged if I have 4 Derp Ape Outposts and have no Derp Apes. So what we did, and this was again, something I'm super proud of, is that we wanted, I mean, now when I describe it, it seems like a no-brainer. But at the time, this was a big challenge that we had, was how do we make sure that the new holders, right, the people who are incoming into the ecosystem, don't feel like, we want them to feel immediately sort of, obviously like a part of the community, but we wanted to create this sort of reliance upon each other. So if you're an existing holder that has 100 Derp Birds, but you can't go and mint that many Outposts, it's okay, because the person over here who minted those Outposts wants help fortifying their Outposts. So you can fortify other people's Outposts, and you get the rewards. If you're the person with the Derp Birds, you get the reward for fortifying. You want to fortify. You want to find a home to fortify in. But if you're the holder of the Outpost itself, if you're the owner of the Outpost, then you're looking for that person who has the Derp Birds. And so we wanted to create this like symbiotic sort of, I'm going to stop using that term. But like, we wanted to create this relationship, almost reliant relationship between the existing community and holders and the people who are coming in with the Outpost. And so again, at a high level, that there's some other cool stuff going on with fortifying, but that's what fortifying is at a high level.
I was gonna say, so the Derp Bird, for example, will earn the Derp token. Why do I want someone else to fortify my place? Like, am I gonna get Derp token too if they're fortifying?
Yeah, exactly. You once your Outpost is fully fortified, which means there's 4 Derp Birds in it in this example, it starts earning Derp as well. And so
even if you don't own the Derps,
even if you don't own the Derps, because the owner of the Derp Birds, and so just real quick, this is a screenshot from the ecosystem. If you look at any Derp Bird, in this case it's a Derp Bird, when you look at a Derp Bird, you see passive staking, right? You see how much it earns. This is XP, and then you translate it to Derp, right? Because you earn XP, it's off chain. Through our passive staking system today, you earn this much XP. Now the number isn't in here, but what you'll see is that if this Derp Bird is fortifying, it actually earns X amount of XP slash the Derp token per epoch. So you, as the holder of the Derp Birds, you want Outposts to fortify in, because you want to earn. It's much higher than the passive staking reward will be. So you could just sit and hold your assets and not fortify with them, and you'll still earn. We still want to reward our holders who don't want to participate in Outposts, or who are just perma AFK. That's fine. But those who are participating, we want to make the rewards for fortifying feel quite a bit more significant than the passive staking rewards. So fortifying rewards are much higher. But again, once your Outpost is fully fortified, or let's say it's you and I, you've got the Outpost, I've got the Derp Birds. You don't have 4 Derp Birds, and so you're like, Dave, bro, help me with my Outpost. I want to start earning Derp. So I put 4 of my Derp Birds in your Outpost, and now your Outpost itself starts generating its own rewards that aren't related to the rewards that the Derp Bird itself gets. It's its own set of rewards.
Sweet. And we did get a quick question from Damien. Are the total amount of Outposts 1-to-1 with the Derp NFTs? So when all Outposts are fully loaded, will there be no more Derps on the market? Because there are 8,000 of these Outposts, but because more Derp Birds can go in them, are there enough Outposts and enough spots for every single NFT, or like what's kind of the math on that?
There's way more spots than are needed. And the thought, we went back and forth. One of the models, again, and there's a few things here to juggle. is the collection sizes vary, right? There are only 5,000 derplings out there. There's only 3,500, I think, preds out there. But derp apes, on the other hand, they there's a lot of derp apes. There's 8,800 derp apes. So that had to have some impact on how many outposts there are for each faction. So we need to have more derp ape outposts than we have pred outposts, because we got to make sure all the derp apes have homes, that can be fortified in. But there are way more fortification slots, let's call it that. There's more fortification capacity than there are character NFTs. So you would never be in a situation where like, oh, I can't find a place to fortify. And we might adjust those numbers post-launch. We might adjust what the fortification numbers look like. But to start, we want to keep it simple and we want to make sure that everyone who's looking to participate in fortifying isn't, left out in the cold beating on outpost doors trying to get in. We wanted it to be, find a home. And then again, we might tune that. We love doing like balance patches and such for the ecosystem. We're like adjust things. But yeah, to start, you would never not be able to find a home for now. That leads into something that I can allude to, but I can't give all the details on. So if I can just throw my derp ape in any outpost and it earns the same amount, like its rewards they don't vary from outpost to outpost. And that is the way it works, by the way, is we wanted to introduce some sort of mechanic, some feature that the owner of the outpost themselves can participate in, and that's as much as I want to say about it, that they can participate in, that they can do, that will boost the rewards for the characters that are fortifying that outpost. So again, gamification, fun, dynamic, like those are all table stakes for us. And so that to start, it's gonna be very easy. Throw your derps in, your preds, your derplings, whatever, in the outpost. They start earning the fortification rewards. But for everything else, beyond that, like is when we want to start like putting out like the sort of more gamification layers where you can say, hey guys, you should come use my outpost because I've done this thing that's going to make your derp apes earn more than they would at someone else's outpost.
Very interesting. I think I know where you're going with that, but
I bet you don't.
Cool.
I bet you don't. But I like that you're thinking on it. It's a lot of fun. What I will say is and this maybe brings us into the next major feature is, actually, you know what? I'll say this, and then if you have any questions or anything you want to add, I'll shut up for a second. But the one thing I will say about that is it's tied to the structures. So as I mentioned, every outpost has these 7 structures on it, and we'll get into upgrading here in a second. But you can see like you can upgrade every structure. And those upgrades come with different benefits. So this is the mining facility structure, for example. It's the one that's tied to the crypto mining aspect. So if you upgrade it, you can earn additional mining rewards.
I would say actually just like break down upgrading while we're at this. Like this is probably a good time to break this down.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll close the loop on what we were just talking about with fortifying is that the one thing I will say about that dynamic, that mechanic I'm talking about is it's related to one of the structures. So yeah, it's not as black and white. It's just upgrading. We want to add some like dynamic layers here. That's not just like, oh, let me just spin derp to upgrade and everything. We wanted to create like some ways of making it a little more interesting. So at a high level, as I mentioned, all structures, and I'm just gonna click over here for a second just to show this image. I think it might help click. Again, this is an infographic, and this is related to customizing, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But this kind of gives you an idea. Again, I mentioned we haven't showed like fully completed artwork. This kind of gives an idea of what an outpost with structures looks like. In this case, it's all Derp Bird structures, and they have skins, a customizable skin supply to them. So this is a Goombel skin. We have a Sneck skin here. Oh, Sneck skin. we have the Sneck skin here applied, and then we have for Goofy Gophers we have a skin. And these aren't even finished. That's why we have little just slices there so we can show parts of it. But I just wanted to say, like, for people to connect, like, what do you mean by structures? This is what I mean. I mean, like, this is the comms tower, for example, that we see here. This is the mining facility in the background. So jumping back to upgrading, every outpost, every single outpost has all of these structures on it, and they all start damaged. Each of these structures start damage, and they can all be interacted with and upgraded independently. So if I can decide to upgrade my mining facility, for example, and this is where most people will probably start. And I can get different benefits. So here we're showing what the upgrade cost in Derp is using the Derp token, and how long it takes for those different tiers of upgrades, and then what the benefits are. I will say these details are subject to change. Even now before launch, we're fine tuning the numbers.
Always gotta have that. Always gotta have that.
Always gotta have that. Dude, like, dude, our disclaimer is these are likely to change after launch as well. You know, we're always like fine tuning, taking in feedback.
These will eventually change at some point.
Exactly, just a blanket statement. But this is so again. Once you a piece I haven't mentioned here is like, what does it mean to interact with your outposts? So we're launching the Gold Rush app. The name of this milestone is Gold Rush. This huge deliverable. And so we're launching an app that you'll get to from the Derp ecosystem, browser-based app. And you can, of course, go to your outpost, and you can view them in this sort of, I don't want to mislead people. And again, I'm always really cognizant. I don't want people to like come back and like, Dave lied. But really, the vibe that we're going for is sort of like this Clash of Clans like type environment.
Yes,
it's not a native app, right? Like, so you know, I don't want people to be like, oh, cool, I'm going to be able to do all of these things. It isn't that, but that is sort of the closest thing I think that people can resonate with, like they know. So it's sort of this like Clash of Clans like environment where you're viewing your outposts and again, so you'll see your outposts, right, and widescreen and everything, and you can interact with the different structures, and you can start upgrading them. So again, as I mentioned, they all come damaged. All the structures come damaged. Just sort of shows an example of damage, repaired, and then pristine. And I guess a couple things worth mentioning is at launch. The only structure that will be upgradable at launch is the mining facility. We want to give, and the reason why is we want to give people the ability to get in there and start upgrading them before the mining stuff kicks in. So if you want to make sure that you're getting maximum rewards at your outpost, is you can go ahead and get in there even before the miners are plugged in and all running, and you can go ahead and start upgrading your mining facility. The other structures are all a little less straightforward. Again, we don't want everything just to be, oh, click on this and upgrade it and you're done. So what we're looking for are ways to make every structure, maybe not every structure, maybe some of them will have some similar mechanics associated with them. But what we want to at least attempt is to make each structure as best we can feel dynamic and different in its own way, and in the way that you upgrade, and then the benefit for upgrading it. And the really exciting thing about that, in my opinion, is it just goes back to everything I've talked about. Like we have this ecosystem, so much stuff, right? We're building this universe. We have this ecosystem that's growing. It's going to get, just launching the Gold Rush app and new Outpost ecosystem grows massively. We have the marketplace. We have things like the exchange. We have this trait collecting sort of part of the project. We have leaderboards. We have tons of achievements in the ecosystem. We have adventures in Derpatonia coming later this year. The cool thing about Outposts is it represents an opportunity for us to say, cool, what do we have coming in the future, or what do we have currently in the ecosystem that we can tie to one of these structures? So if you upgrade this structure to level 2, level 3, level 5, whatever, this benefit is sort of given to you elsewhere in the ecosystem. And we're trying to keep it on the theme of earning rewards, right? That's what Outposts are really about. You're out in the Derpatonian wilderness, and you're mining for chelanium. So and you're earning the rewards. So we really want to tie all of those back to rewards in some way. And that's a challenge. It's a real challenge. But that's sort of the idea on upgrading is you spend Derp, you'll upgrade the structures. Not all of them will just be as easy as just let me spend Derp and upgrade this and I'm good. We want to make it a little more interesting than that. Maybe some outposts will have additional levels. But that's kind of upgrading at a high level. And you'll see that already they're just all to be announced, TBA. But that's the idea of upgrading. And the last thing I'll say on upgrading is these are all structures, right? All of these upgrades are about structures. All of these upgrades are related specifically to the structures. There are other ideas we have in mind for upgrading that aren't necessarily related to the existing structures. And in large part, like we just, again, I'm just rambling at this point, but like in 2024, the ecosystem between Adventures in Derpatonia, between the existing ecosystem in the marketplace, and between the Gold Rush app, there's going to be so much I think there'll be so much to do and so much going on that, yeah, we're trying to think about in 2024, like we want to see how people respond to Outposts and into this collection, how engaged they are with like the upgrades and the fortifying and some of the other mechanics that we're going to launch. And that's going to help us determine how far we push this. You know, we have a limited amount of resources. How many of them do we put into bringing cool new sort of upgrade systems and you can think of it as like expansion packs and those types of things to Outposts, versus do we shift those resources more heavily into Adventures in Derpatonia and so on. So again, that's upgrading, much more sort of planned, but this is what, again, day one, you can get your Outpost, you can immediately start upgrading it with the Derp token by repairing your mining facility.
Sweet. And I think we've covered most of it now besides the Derp token. So I think if you can go over the Derp token, and like sort of the utility, what your guys' plans of the Derp token are. And then after this, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. We'll answer some questions and I guess start to wrap this whole thing up.
Great. On the utility token, we launched it last fall. And again, if anyone stumbles in here and they're reading this, it is woefully out of date at this point. But the Derp utility token, we launched it last year, right out of the gate. Like, again, the thing I always preface is that like what we've tried to do, given the nature of Derp Birds, is like fun, right? We want people to come in and have fun, and that doesn't necessarily mean we're building video games, but we think that people are already here and enjoying this new thing that didn't exist a few years ago. NFTs, collecting NFTs, trading NFTs, swapping NFTs, collecting trades. They're already doing that. They're going to do that no matter what, right? And people have been collecting stuff for as long as our species have existed. People find fulfillment in it. And I promise I'll get back to the token in a second. But for us, like, again, everything that we do, we try to say, people already love this thing. They love this idea of collecting NFTs. What we want to do is not try to reinvent all of Web 2. We're not claiming to do something with that. What we're saying is, given that people are already here and they enjoy doing that, we want to build a project that takes those things that people are already doing and enjoy and make it fun. Be intentional about those things. Create a token that sort of reinforces the idea that all of those activities that you partake in the NFT industry, in the NFT space, can be fun, and we want to have a token that sort of supports that. So when we launch a token, the way that we describe it, it's sort of like an arcade token, right? You go into an arcade, you participate, or you sort of have your tokens that allow you to participate. It's more like a hybrid between the token and the tickets, because you spend the token to participate on things in some cases, and in other cases you're actually earning the token that can be used in places. And for a long time, the only use that we had, it was day one use of the token launch, is we have our own raffle shop that we built. We actually launched right alongside Mutant's raffle shop. Ours is, we thought about taking it like to the level they did. And as soon as we saw how hard they were going on raffles, we're like, nope, like that's their thing. Just like Gophers with mining, if there's someone who's doing it great, we definitely don't want to just like add to the noise in the space. But we do have our own raffle shop in the Derp ecosystem. And so from day one, like that was a day one utility for the token. Since then, the other primary use has been upgrading your legacy Derp Birds to rebirth Derp Birds. As we just talked about with upgrading, and I want to jump back to the breakdown here of mining revenue. I'll finish that statement. Is one thing that we just talked about was upgrading. So right out of the gate with the Outpost launching, this adds a new utility and a new use for the token. But beyond that, I alluded to some of the other kind of fun things that we have planned that I don't want to all give away yet. A lot of those revolve around the token, and that's for Outpost specifically. Adventures in Derpatonia comes later this year. I would say that probably has 4 or 5 times the number of uses that even Outposts have. So pretty much anything that you go through in Adventures in Derpatonia, the token, whether it's the on-chain token, the Derp token itself, or it's our off-chain sort of point system, will be tied to it in some way. But the one thing I want to mention, and I can. If you have more questions, I can talk more about the specific uses and such. But the other thing I want to mention is we related to the Derp LP is, and we just tweeted about this yesterday. When we launched the token, we did not set up an LP. At the time, we were completely based out of the US, so it really wasn't something that we were advised against doing that ourselves. And so we didn't. So the community set up an LP. It's always been, sorry, I just started touching my AirPods again, so I didn't know if it switched over the audio, but we had to let the LP be completely community driven. We couldn't interact with it at all. I've purchased Derp from it as a culture community meme thing where we buy 69 Derp. One time, I've never sold Derp. We've never interacted with it. Well, over the last year, we have spent a lot of time getting an offshore foundation set up in Panama, an offshore corporation. And so now we're able to, through those entities, we're able to now interact with the LP, support the LP, and so on. So just yesterday, we added 120,000 ADA worth of value to the LP through ADA and the Derp token. And a big part of the mining operation that we're running is 15% of the revenue. 15% of the revenue goes back to the LP, both in terms of injecting liquidity as needed, and also buying back the token as needed, because we may want to replenish how much that we have in our ecosystem to dish out as rewards. So we may want to go to the LP to just buy back straight from the LP. And so that's sort of the update on Derp. We can talk about the more of the history of it and everything, but that's what's new. That's what's recent with the token, is that just yesterday we did the huge injection. And then as an ongoing part of the ecosystem now, sort of upkeep and maintenance is every, whenever we're sort of bringing in mining revenue, 15% of that goes straight to the LP.
That's awesome. So essentially it's going to actually have a liquidity behind it, and it's going to be self-provided through the mining rewards, and then there's going to be a lot more utilities, more so than just upgrading Outpost, but with Adventures of Derpatonia. And I know this video isn't about Adventures of Derpatonia, but what's sort of the time frame on Adventures?
You just had to ask that. So we've been telling people that we're aiming for this year. We're still aiming for this year. I would say the only complication, the only wrinkle in that plan right now is it's really the launch of the marketplace. There is an opportunity, we feel right now, for us. Again, if we do something, it's got to be fun. It's got to be sort of immersive. So the resources that we're putting into the marketplace, again, we have limited resources, so we have to pick, do we want to sort of prioritize some of these new features for marketplace that make ours unique and fun? And again, it's just a Derp marketplace. We're not competing with JPEG or anything like that. Do we sort of put more resources in that and get the marketplace to a spot that we're all having fun with it and it's really rewarding? Or do we launch Outposts, we continue doing some of those new Outpost features, and then we just like switch into fifth gear and go all out on Adventures in Derpatonia? So the goal is still this year. But yeah, it sort of depends. We're trying to get a check for the community. Yeah. Like, how much do you guys want us to go into the marketplace right now versus Adventures in Derpatonia? Geek, my co-founder and engineer, like the guy who does all the work, he feels confident. For everyone else listening, he feels very confident that we'll hit it this year. I have my reservations, if I'm totally honest. But yeah, that's the timeline on Adventures in Derpatonia.
Sweet. And I think this was a really great kind of summary of everything that you guys have going on with this Outpost mint. And just to double check, like, when's the release date? How many NFTs? What's the mint price? You said it was full public already, for those that were wondering about that. And while he's going over this, guys, if anyone has questions, feel free to put them in. I'm about to scroll through the chat. We'll get like a good 5-10 minutes of questions in before we wrap this thing up.
Yeah, so you can see details here in the guidebook. We've also, I think it was Monday's tweet, we just released, I don't know if you saw it, by the way, we released the new trailer from the Preds perspective on Outposts. I
don't think I saw this yet.
Oh, dude, go check it out. Like again, I don't want to pivot and start talking about IP and stuff, but again, that's a big part of our future. Like 2024, like we want to start really developing that side of the project more, as story, IP, brand. And so we're like releasing these trailers that aren't just like, hype trailers. They're, by the way, all about this, because what you guys did for your recent announcement is insane, right? That like sets the standard. But we're trying to release these trailers in a way that help us tell the story, develop the IP, help us position the brand for for where we want it to go, while also sort of releasing details like the mint details. And so yeah, you can see that in the trailer that we released on Monday and in that tweet, but they're also here in the guidebooks. You can see there's 8,000 outposts. The mint starts this Friday. I don't want to misquote this thing. It's 5 p.m. Eastern or 3 p.m. Eastern. It's one of those 2 times. Check the tweet. I should have it in here. And then the mint price is 495 ADA.
Sweet. So we've been getting this question a lot. How tight are those pants? I've gotten this question like 10 times, man.
You already know how tight they are, but they're tight. They're as tight as they should be. I think that's They're as
tight. Are you wearing a straight or slim straight or what's like the type?
Well, let's just get into it here. These are the Barbell brand jeans, and these are I think it's kind of an oxymoron because they're a boot cut, although they don't seem like it, but they're a boot cut skinny jean. For anyone who's really interested.
Dude, that's that's gonna sell out at your nearest Target now. Let me see if we have some questions. Oh, I see a lot of derps, very tight. A lot of memes going on.
The screenshots, dude, are already gonna be that's gonna be on Twitter.
Let's see.
Yeah, by the way,
they're very obsessed with the pants. What were you saying though?
I was just gonna say, by the way, what's up, Asong, who's who I see in the chat? Yeah, he said LP situation. So again, I don't want to go back to talking about the token too much, but yeah, it is very difficult, and you may have thoughts on this as well. It's very difficult to be based out of the US,
yes,
and be able to do many of the things that would allow you to be a competitive NFT project. Very difficult. So yeah, for us, it was a huge investment of time and money to establish our offshore entities.
Yeah, we actually have the same lawyer as Ryan from Goofy Gophers, located in Cyprus. Yeah, we had set that up too, because trying to run a project out of the US, you're seeing all these projects get screwed by the SEC right now. I think there were like 2 in the past month. So yeah, definitely a good move on that. We saw JK Eratico. He was saying comms tower upgrade by Discord participation / Twitter. So is there any like Discord Twitter participation in order to increase that upgrade?
I'll be honest, no. However, that is of course something JK would say, who's big into the Twitter and Discord and how to like tie those together. But that has not been the plan. But there's a social element there that we're exploring. But yeah, I won't say it's tied to Twitter or Discord. I do like that.
Sweet. And what's up, Tommy? Instead of Freedom 35 is Freedom 45ers soon. Nice to see you in here. Will the rank or rarity of the NFTs impact the reward? So basically, will how rare your derp is impact the Outpost reward?
Oh, okay. I see. That's not how I read it. But yeah. Will the rank or rarity of the NFTs impact? No. So if you throw in this will make sense to existing derp roles, but like a legendary perfect specimen derper with a really high power score into your outpost, it doesn't change anything, at least not at launch. It doesn't change anything about what the outpost earns at all. That derp will still earn for fortifying, and it will earn more than it would at passive staking, and its power score will impact what it earns through fortifying, but it doesn't affect the outpost earning at all, the rewards for the outpost.
Sweet. And then for the reward multiplier, is it only on the rarity that's like the lava one, for example, or do the sizes have an impact?
The reward multiplier is only based on the location. The size determines the reward sources. So again, small is mining only, medium is mining and ecosystem, and then a large outpost is mining, ecosystem, and royalties. And then the location is where that multiplier comes from.
So just to double check, if I have a large lava and also a small lava, the mining rewards would be the exact same.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, you would then get the royalties and ecosystem on those different sizes. But yes, that's good to know, actually.
Exactly.
Um, Perion was saying, are you going to be able to burn any derps for an outpost? I'm guessing not. I'm guessing it's just strictly off this mint.
Strictly off of the it's ADA to mint. If that's what he means, like can I exchange derps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the mining farm will not allow us to send them Derp Birds in exchange for miners, so we need the ADA. But yeah, I will say, like, I don't want to go too far down that question, but there are something I touch on a couple times and is a hot topic around derps all the time is number of NFTs. You and I talked about it in Vegas as well. And so I will say we've done things in the past to reduce collection sizes. Like you had to give up a derp bird or a derpling to get a pet, those types of things. But I think one of the things that we see, depending upon from your point of view, it might be your biggest challenge to solve for, biggest problem, or it might be biggest opportunity, is more work around that. Specifically for derp apes, I think like it's a large collection, and so yeah, I don't want to give anything away or talk too much about it. But in terms of burning, we have some more ideas for 2024 that I think at least the existing community is super excited about.
Sweet. And then do all the outposts have the same structures?
Yes, that's something that changed from that has changed since the earliest time we like started talking about outposts. It's all based on faction, of course. And the one thing I'll say is, depending upon location, the layout obviously changes. So the structures you will have it. So let's say we have 2 lava load peak outposts that are both derp apes. They'll all have the same structures, but they'll be positioned in different areas around the outpost. And there is some variance. There's like these smaller little structures that are part of support structures, and sometimes they might actually, like on a small, they might be right here beside each other, and on a large, they might actually be spread out. So the variety shifts based on that. That's been a huge challenge, but they do all have the same structures.
Sweet. And then in the worst case scenario, let's say these don't min out. What's sort of the plan?
If these don't min out, it doesn't. So we have to make, the first thing would be, we have to make a decision on at what point do we say, cool, we've stalled out. We still need to go and buy miners, and start rewarding those that are holding. Because of the hash rate, nothing really changes for the people who minted. The rewards are the same. So if anything, for those who minted, they will be handsomely rewarded because of ecosystem and royalties. They'll just be getting a larger share of them. So there may be, like, if we totally stalled out and it failed, there might be a discussion around, do we need to go back in and tune those numbers back a little bit? But in terms of mining, nothing really changes. The most difficult decision would be, when do we go ahead and say, cool, we've collected this amount of funding, we're going to go ahead and buy miners now to get up and running with this. At what point do we make that? Because we want to buy as many miners at the same time as possible. So that would be a tough decision. We work with Ryan from GGMC on that. And then the other tough decision, of course, would be, at what point do we, if we hit a wall, do we say, hey, yeah, maybe this isn't going to work out. Let's go ahead and cut supply here and run with what we got. So yeah,
I don't think you guys are going to run into that issue. Cause like, even though the market's really rough right now, I think that you guys have a large enough community. You guys have all the attention right now when it comes to this mint. I would be surprised if you guys didn't mint out, knock on wood. Cause you're not just like some random project releasing this shit out of nowhere, and 80% of the funds are getting reinvested immediately. So I would be surprised if you guys didn't sell out.
I'm generally a pessimist. I'm
Yeah.
someone who's like, I'm always thinking, like, what's the worst case scenario? How do we handle it? So I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time. I don't think anyone will. I'm not ashamed. I'm not like I don't have like so much ego that I can't admit that I'm obviously nervous about it. I'm confident because the derp community is showing up. The engagement's been great. I think that, again, we are a trusted team. Even if people don't like us as a project, I'd like to think that they look at us and say, you know what, that's a team that's delivered. They haven't raised funding in about 20, I think it's 20 months now. So we've literally just cranked on this for 20 months. And yeah, I've not taken, other than the MacBook that I'm talking to you on right now, that's the only thing that I've ever purchased through any funding that we have raised for myself. Everything else goes back to the project. So yeah, I'm optimistic. You know, we have a plan for the worst case scenario, but I also appreciate your sort of encouragement as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident you guys are gonna be good. Like I look at like a lot of project mints. Obviously, I'd be very surprised if you guys didn't sell out. Next thing here, just to give you a little breath of fresh air, because I know it's like stressful. You're like, oh, you know, even in this market, I think you guys are fine. Now, A-Sung had a question. Well, let's tap into this quicker question first. How many outposts can you mint per transaction? Is there a cap on this?
There's a cap of up to 5. A few reasons why, but the just with the increase, just with the premium mint price itself, we feel that having a lower cap per transaction is okay. So we've capped it at 5. But then the other reason is because the thing that we haven't even talked about, which is the mint experience. We have this dude. I am so excited for the mint experience. Like, I cannot wait for people to see it. And so a part of it's also sort of constraints for the experience that we've built. But yeah, Nami, good question. It's up to 5.
I'm excited because like I remember it was months ago now, potentially, when you were like, man, has anyone done like a cool mint experience recently? You talked about like Dead Pixels a little bit.
Yeah.
The only other one that I could really think of was Old Money. They had a very in-depth mint experience, but
Yeah.
outside of that, it's usually pretty like straight.
That is the thing that, like, again, I don't want to get too caught up in this, but like one of the things that we've all, again, having our own mint tech in-house has been really great for that reason, because we've been able to build these custom experiences without having to pay, you know, someone loads of money for that. But pretty much all of our mint experiences, we've tried to make memorable. The incubator, the hatchery, that was the first multi-sig, and like the reveal of your derpling and everything like coming up out of that too. Like we've all the pred mints last May was at the time it was really cool. That's what got us into an NDA with IOHK. Was that mint experience. They were really interested in what we were able to build. But this one, I'm telling you, like, I haven't seen anything like it, and it definitely trumps anything that we've done in our own experience or in our own past so far.
Exciting. Heck yeah, we'll leave that as a surprise on Mint Day then.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll do the last question here. And I want to say thank you to everyone that's been listening in as well. We had over 100 people listen in pretty much the entire time on a live, which is awesome. So appreciate everyone's support and checking this out and checking out Derp Birds. But the last question in here, and this is a big one as well. So you guys are attracting some new eyes. If someone's looking to join in, where do they start? What should they look at? And to kind of two-part this, why should they start? Why should they get in?
Cool. Yeah. So I have a couple things to say about it. I think the where to start right now in terms of, you know, if you're like, oh, which collections, you know, should I look at? The same spiel I give everyone. I always recommend starting with a Rebirth Derp Bird. That's like the face of the project. And what we say is that the Derp Birds and the Preds are the primary characters. Like, they're like the main characters of the project. And Derp Birds and Derplings, in terms of like ecosystem and uses, they sort of fall more into like a support role. They're used sort of to especially like in Adventures in Derpatonia and so on. They're used to sort of support rather than like running off on their own adventure. So again, main characters, Derp Birds and Preds, like I say start there, and then sort of fill around the ecosystem and see what you're interested in, and then maybe start collecting assets that support whatever your interests are. Sorry, your second part was the why they should.
Why should they get in? Yeah,
I think it goes back to like, you know, what we kicked off with. Like, in my opinion, people are here in the NFT space. They're doing this whole thing of Web3 and NFTs with or without any sort of bells or whistles or frills or anything, right? A lot of people are chasing money and all of that's great. I think why to get into Derp Birds is if you are looking for a project that is fun, that's their goal is to make this experience of collecting NFTs, this experience of being in Web3. If you're looking for a place where you can do that and have fun in a safe environment that has a trusted team behind it, I think that's a part of the why. I will say that it is sort of an ever shifting answer for us, because again, just the nature of Derp Birds and sort of our marketing slogan is so much stuff, is that we aren't committing to one big thing. And I think for what it's worth, like Asung's asking that question, like Cardano Crocs is sort of like that in a way. And that there's a lot going on with their ecosystem. So it's the pros and cons of that. It's hard to point to one thing and say, oh, if you love video gaming, if you love crypto mining, if you love collecting NFTs, if you love achievements, if you love community, it's not just one thing. It's all of those things, and it's going to continue to grow and to become, you know, more and more things. But I think that's the why. Last thing I want to throw on top of that is I love that Asung asked this question, and I love the way that you spun it as well. One of the things that I think large projects struggle with, Derp Birds in particular, because there's a lot going on. I would love to talk to Asung sometime about it for Cardano Crocs as well. I see Ape Society can have the same problem. Projects like Mallard Orders can have the same problem. Is as the ecosystem grows, it becomes more difficult to convince people that either one, they haven't missed the boat, or two, not to overwhelm them when they're trying to just dip their toe in. And the question Asung asked, we get asked that you know, multiple times on Twitter every day. And it's difficult to give someone, if you haven't noticed, it's difficult to give someone just a very clear, direct answer. One of the things that I want to put a lot of focus on for 2024 is how do we fix that? And so a big part, it's not just for Web3, you know, we want to continue growing in Web3, but how do we go beyond that? And so I'm starting to think a lot about, and I've talked to some people from the community about onboarding. How do we onboard Web3, even non-Web3, but how do we make it as easy as possible for people to sort of start sliding into the ecosystem, sort of get a feel, get up to speed with what we've done, where we're going, what might interest them, letting them go deeper on those topics. That's a big part of something we're working on. So that's a question I love because, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Dude, I mean, we would talk way too long if like there's way too much points to bring up on that, you know, because like we deal with similar stuff, is especially since our collection size is so small, you know, and like our floor is like, I guess, high in comparison, like even though we don't have that many NFTs and stuff, it's it's like a whole figuring out like how to give a message that is very complex and ever evolving and an ever complicating ecosystem, and being able to compartmentalize that in a very digestible way for people, especially when you have a lot of new hype projects constantly coming out. And but we'll save that for another time, because I'm sure we'll have you on the channel for another time. We talked about an NFTLV having like sort of almost like a roundtable live stream thing, and Asung would be a great fit to jump in on that when we do that. But yeah, I think for today though, let's wrap this thing up. This is Derp Birds Outpost. Definitely check out the Twitter, the Discord. I'm guessing that whole entire guide thing you have is somewhere on Discord.
You can grab it in Discord. Someone will immediately drop it in general chat, but it's also just check out our Twitter. Like, it's one of the most recent tweets. We've sort of got it there. So,
and tomorrow there's a space with Ryan, right, from Goofy Gophers. So I'm sure that's going to be the space where you guys break down some of the numbers more, because I know people that are listening in, they might be like, well, how much is the mining reward? What's like the electricity? Where is this located? That will be better to be asked tomorrow when Ryan is going to be the guy that can answer all those questions.
Dude, he's the dude. It's the reason why we're working with him, is because like they run the mining operation. Let us focus on the things that we want to do. And to me, that it's such a great product for that reason. But yeah, come to the Twitter space tomorrow. Ask your technical numbers-based questions that I don't like getting into, and let Ryan help us with those.
Awesome. Well, sounds good. Any last minute thing you want to say before we sign off?
Dude, this was a ton of fun. Like, I had a lot of fun talking. I for real, like, the roundtable needs to happen. Like, just getting to come together, a lot of founders, like, talk about product. And again, I see Asung's like comment now around this just conversation around onboarding new users while keeping existing holders happy. Like, so many topics I feel like we could pick. So thanks for having me on. Hope everyone shows up on Friday. Come grab your Outposts. And yeah, if anyone wants to talk about anything, feel free to hit me up anytime on Twitter or in Discord.
Awesome. Well, sounds good. And thank you guys for everyone listening in today, and we'll catch y'all later.